What's up, everybody? It's Quinton from Hunters of Light, and today we've got Shayne Robinson on with us. Shayne's 19-year career as a photojournalist has seen him work for the South African Press Association. He's worked in 48 countries, covering war zones, natural disasters, sports, and fashion. And it was during his first 4 years that he started working with the Ballet photo story in the Alexandra township. And that's where he first photographed this form of dance, and it's become his lifelong obsession. So I think it's one of those things where you start a project and no matter what you do, it just grabs hold of you, and you keep going, and many years down the line you're still playing with it. So I know there's a lot of people that are really excited to be watching this. I know my wife, for one, is one of them. She's a bit upset that it's not streaming live, but you know what? We're recording, then we'll stream it after that. So Shayne, thank you very much for coming on board and agreeing to do a presentation. I think from the images that I've seen, they look very cool. And I love these sort of documentary style photojournalistic viewpoints of these type of projects. So I'm certainly really keen to see what you've got to show us and tell us today. But maybe let's start off with what you've been doing during lockdown. I'm assuming that you're in the same boat as the rest of our photographers have been, sitting at home waiting for things to open up again.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's a boat at the moment. It might be an umbrella. The first couple of weeks of the lockdown was awesome because, I had that nice little piece of paper that said I was allowed to work. And
right.
Being freelance and having that piece of paper, everyone was reaching out. In the first 3 weeks, I worked solid for people I'd never heard from ever before. So all the big companies were getting hold of me. I was doing stuff for Discovery. I did a TV advert for them. It was insane. And then literally, it was like someone turned the tap off. And yeah, no idea where we're going from this point forward, but we're going. We just don't know where.
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of us, we're just making it up as we go, because it's all you can do. You don't know what's going to happen next week. As you're saying, you have a press pass, but then all of a sudden it turns off, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's a weird world that we're living in, because what I found was when we all thought it was, 15 days, everyone was kind of hyped and excited and was like, yeah, we're going to do this, South Africa. We're awesome. And I sat and watched my Facebook page explode, 3,000 new people following my work. It was phenomenal. And then all of a sudden it was 35 days and I kind of saw things plateau out. And then all of a sudden, here we are 80 days later, and the general public actually doesn't care. They don't want to see the pictures anymore. They don't want to know about it. They just want to know how they're going to survive. And yeah, I think interest has been completely and utterly lost in the whole story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a level of what we would in South Africa call gatvol, because the people that are supposed to be guiding us are vague and descriptive and sometimes just confuse the whole situation. So I think for a lot of people, they've actually just gone back to work, gone back to doing what they do. So it's a pity, but hopefully it all sorts itself out and we can get back to some sort of more normalcy. But it's going to be a strange one. Even in the studio now, everyone that comes it's hygiene is number one, social distancing and all of those things are incredibly important, and we just have to do it. And it's a weird thing that we've now been forced into working with.
I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is I've had a lot of clients come back to me and say, actually, you know what, we've had 80 days to kind of learn skills that we didn't have time before. And while we love your service, we've been doing this ourselves for 80 days and we're just going to carry on doing it because, yeah, it's not as good, but we're still getting feedback from our clients to the videos we're putting out, to the photos we're putting out, and people have upskilled themselves. And I think that is a big issue we as creatives face going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had that sort of situation where, you speak to people and you try and give them advice on improving, whatever it is, whether it's their corporate portraits or product pictures. And there's, for the last couple of years, there's always been this, it'll do for now type of scenario. But I think, as you say now, it's a very real reality where, people have, because they can't get photographers to come out. They've gone on to Takealot, and they've bought a camera bundle, and they've started doing what they can. And unfortunately, the downside to that is that some of them will stick with that, even though the quality is not great at all. We just have to find a way of making it work for us if we can.
100%. I mean, the thing is also is that the gear is so good. So I've got this new 850D Canon that I've got on test at the moment, and what comes out of this camera in program mode is insane.
Yeah,
it really is insane. And so, yes, while we see things differently and we can tell stories they can't, the ability for them to buy something like an 850D for 12 grand and just produce content and then jump onto something like Canva or one of those programs and snap some stuff together, do a YouTube tutorial or two. It's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to even try and think about it. Let's talk ballet. Yeah,
we'll talk about the good old days for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's cool. So, I mean, whenever you're ready, let's check out what you're going to show us today, and take our minds off of this COVID nonsense.
Okay, cool. Let me see if I can get the screen shared. Which one is it? 2. Yes, there we go. Okay, great. That should be up on your side now.
Perfect.
Okay, so I think to kick this off, I'm going to have to delve a little bit into my background and how I got into press photography and how this passion and the story came about, because it wasn't something that just happened overnight. So, where are we now? 18, 19 years ago. I'm a motorbike mechanic by trade. That is my trade. That's what I started out in life doing. I worked in a motorbike shop. And then this weird thing called the interwebs hit South Africa. And we kind of looked at this and thought, hey, this would be a great way to kind of get more people into our motorbike shop. So we're going to build a website. And then we saw what people were charging for websites. And I was like, hell no. And I said to my dad, who was my partner, that, give me that money and let me go study web design. And that's what I did. So I went and studied web design, came back and I built us a website, and awesome, great, we were getting business. And then one of the other bike shops came and said, hey, could you build us one? Which then started rolling over. And all of a sudden I was doing all these bike shop websites. And then I've always been into writing. So I kind of thought to myself, hey, what about an online motorbike magazine? And I did that. So I started the first online motorbike magazine in South Africa. And I ran that solid for about 2.5, 3 years, having a complete and utter blast and improving my writing skills and, just doing some basic photography. And then what happened is a lady by the name of Charlene Carroll and Graham Scarler noticed the magazine, and they invited me into Joburg for an interview with this company called Computing SA, which was an IT newspaper. And they said to me, would you like a job? And I was like, okay, well, I've got, no journalism background. I've got no background whatsoever. They were like, no, it's cool. We like your writing. We'll teach you. And I thought, okay, what the hell? Off with, get rid of the motorbikes. And so I became an IT journalist and completely and utterly loved it and worked within this tech industry. So I was doing, product reviews on all the phones. And I remember going to South Korea with LG and sending my wife an email from a fridge in South Korea.
Oh, man.
Which, I've still got the printout of it, but it was this really awesome world where I was like, hey, tech is the future. And I moved my way up the lines there slowly, and I became the editor of their online platform, ICT World. And I was loving it. I was making way too much money, thoroughly enjoying what I was doing. We drank too much, we partied too much. It was just a phenomenal job. And then for some other reason, my wife bought me the Bang Bang Club. And I looked at this book and thought, oh, okay. And I read the first couple of pages. I then sat down on the toilet with the book, and I didn't leave until 3 o'clock the next morning when the book was finished. I literally consumed it overnight, woke up the next morning and said to my wife, I'm going to be a press photographer. She said, but you don't know how to take photos. I said, I don't care. And I literally went and scoured the web looking for jobs as a press photographer. And somehow, some way, the South African Press Association was looking for a photographer. And between some stuff, I mean, just previous to that, I'd gone to the big Sustainable Development Summit that happened in South Africa. I went there with my little Mercandrick camera. I shot some pictures. I sat down at SAPA with their editor at the time and said, right, here's my photos. And I think I got lucky because they just knew slightly less than I did.
Okay.
And next thing I knew, I had a job as a press photographer, knowing literally nothing. I mean, I still remember at that stage, I mean, that was 2001. What is now probably one of my most embarrassing moments in my life ever was picking up the phone and phoning Robert and Comley at the Star newspaper to find out if people were still wearing bulletproofs and helmets. And, you know, I've just started out and do I need this stuff? And hearing her laugh at me on the other side of the phone.
It's hilarious.
But that was it. So now I was in and I still knew nothing. I kind of, you know, I got a Nikon D100, which was the most basic digital camera. They'd just been launched. So I came into this learning on digital, not on film. And I just happened to get lucky. I met Kim Ladbrokes. I met John Russo. I met Heldon Krog. I met Joao Silva. And because we all rode motorbikes and had the same sort of kind of stuff you attitude, we all got on like a house of fire. And I was fortunate that they all kind of just took me under their wing and started teaching me. I remember Heldon was up for some award or something, and we were sitting at Ladbrokes' place, and he needed a profile picture for this award that he'd won. And Kim handed me his camera and said, take a photo of Heldon for this. And I went, oh, okay, cool. Boom. And I took a photo and I looked at this and it was like, okay, I'm happy with that. And I passed it to him and he smacked me on the back of the head and said, no, do it again. And we literally sat there for about 25 minutes while I struggled to take one portrait that Heldon was happy with. And then Kim showed me the spot meter and kind of did this half and half light thing. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. How do you do that? And I mean, that's how far away I was.
Yeah.
That I didn't know how the spot meter worked on the camera or anything to that extent. And just working with these guys. And then what happened is, it was probably about 2.5, 3 years in, they said to me, okay, great. You know, you've really progressed. And I'd met Robin and Debbie and, you know, TJ. And I was really a part of this community, which was really, really welcoming. My images were improving every day. And they said to me, what you need to do is work on a photo story. And I was like, well, what the hell's a photo story? You know, I wake up in the morning, I go to work, SAPA gives me an assignment, I do the photos, I leave. What's this photo story thing?
Yeah.
And Kim showed me one or two of his photo essays and Heldon showed me two. And I was like, wow, that is cool. And then I kind of started looking at stuff, but everything had been done. It was like, and you know, unfortunately in photography, everything's been done. Every time you're looking for something new, it's not there. It's been done, I promise you. But I kind of gave up on the idea and I just carried on with my general daily grind. And then what happened, I think 2003, I left SAPA and went freelance. And the Globe and Mail in Canada got hold of me, said, we've been watching your work, we like it. We've got a journalist in South Africa, she's going to go do a story in Alexandra Township. Would you like to accompany her and do the photos? And I was like, yeah, I'm getting paid 100%, yeah, I'll go. And I walked in to this place with her. And the second I walked in, it was probably one of the most amazing feelings in my life when somehow, some way, I kind of went, wow, this is the story that I want to tell. This is the photo story that Kim's been talking about, that Heldon's been talking about. And so I did the story with her, and it was a day story. We went in, she wrote the story, I took the pictures, I handed them over, and off she went. And I made friends with Penny, who was the teacher, and I went back a week later and I spent some time with them. And I went back a week later and I spent some time with them. And next thing I knew, it was 6.5 months later. And I was still working on the story every week. And it's when this kind of thing happens to you as a photographer, it's something that gets under your skin, something that you are thinking about every single day of your life. And it's one of the luckiest things that can happen to you as a photographer is to find something like this that just makes you want to get up every day and just shoot pictures. Because the problem with newspaper industry is it'll eat you alive. You know, it all sounds glamorous and sexy and, oh, you're out there shooting all this cool stuff. But what most people don't realize is that 99% of it is standing outside a court waiting for some dude to walk in and taking photos, and waiting till 4 o'clock in the afternoon for him to walk out so you can take his photo again. That's
and the time that you've got there is like 5 seconds as they walk past.
And, you know, and like, I mean, like, just for an example, like Agliotti, you know, I did that court case for 3.5 months. And the only thing that changed every day was his tie. To the extent where I was like, well, can't I just give you 3 days ago photo so that you can use that tie? But no, you know, it's got to be a fresh photo every day of a court case. So that's hence why I left the newspapers fairly quickly. But back into the story. So I met these kids. I loved these kids. And I started working on the story as we went along, developing it. So if you're looking at the image that's on screen now, this was Mkhlatsi. Now, Mkhlatsi, in this picture here, I went to his house and I basically just walked from his house to the ballet school with him, just shooting off a whole bunch of frames. But I knew what I was looking for. I was looking for a very Alex picture, but I wanted the ballet shoes in that image. And I must have shot about 300 images in about a 4-block walk. And this was the one that I selected. There's lots of variations of it. I just like the look in his eye. I like how clean the ballet shoes are. And, you know, I kind of framed him on the left-hand side of the frame so you can see he's walking into his future, which is kind of the way I interpreted the image. Just as a side note, Mkhlatsi is now the prima male dancer at Joburg Theatre, at SA Ballet.
Fantastic.
So, and I only found that out sort of 2 years ago when we reconnected again, when I started working on a different story. And it's just amazing that, you know, this young boy that I shot, what's it now, probably 15 years ago, followed his dream the whole way through. He got bullied at school. He got beaten up at school. He got teased because he was doing ballet and not soccer. And it's just one of those lovely things to kind of see things develop for someone like that who follows their passion.
Absolutely.
Now, this image shows, so the images were all made at the Alexandra Ballet School, with the exception of a couple where I followed the kids home. That is Penelope Clara on the right-hand side. Now, Penelope was the first Black dancer to be accepted into the Joburg Art School. And she went on to a prosperous career overseas. She danced for Sadler Wells, I think it was, and the London Ballet Theatre. And after about 2 or 3 years of doing that, she kind of went, I don't want to do this anymore. And she came back to South Africa and she quit that whole thing and started up this little ballet school outreach program in Alexandra Township, where you know, there was probably about 30 kids that used to come 2 or 3 times a week to the school. And so this is actually a later image, because you can see in the image, all the girls are wearing very nice leotards. And what happened is, at the end of my first year of shooting this project, I submitted the images to World Press Photo. And I was fortunate enough that a single image was selected as a winner. And I got a first place at World Press Photo with one of the images. But the most important part of that was not actually winning the award. The important part about that was how far the story got shared. And all of a sudden, there were people in Canada, all over the world, who now knew about this little ballet school in Alexandra Township, and they were just sending stuff. There were boxes of leotards and stockings and shoes that were just arriving every day. And
brilliant. For
me, that is the most important part. It's got nothing to do with the awards. The awards, if you're just starting out, forget the awards, guys. The awards suck. They cause more shit than they're actually worth. But being able to significantly change people's lives with your photos, that's the award you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Cool. So we're moving on. She did have, there used to be male teachers who used to come along and work with the boys as well. I mean, she used to teach boys too, and she was really strict with the boys, a lot more strict with the boys than she was with the girls, actually. So yeah, this is just, you know, one of the Russian teachers that used to come in and out, and there'd be different guys that floated in and out. But the thing I loved about working at this community hall was just the light that came in through the place. So a lot of these images that I'm showing you now are kind of flat, and I've kind of designed them specifically that way, just to kind of show, you know, basic form and movement around ballet. Now, I mean, when I started shooting this, I knew nothing. I still know nothing. but you know, I've got a couple of words, but I just love the body shapes. And that's what works for me, is the body shapes and how people are able to shape their bodies and move their bodies. I'm a huge skateboarder, so that's my passion in life, skateboarding. And to a lot of people, it's kind of like, well, how do you make your board do that? And to me, watching these kids doing this, I'm like, well, how do you do that? How do you make your body do that?
Exactly.
And it's not always just about the pictures. For me, it's very much about what you can learn along the way. And if nothing else, you know, being freelance in the beginning of my career taught me a lot of things. It taught me how to live on bread and water, to do something that you're passionate about, because you can't just walk into a job, any job, and go, cool, well, you know, I'm going to be a huge success. You can still be a huge success and still not be making a fortune. And I think what these kids taught me all the way back then was, if you have a passion for something, you've got to follow it, whether everyone else is telling you that it's the wrong thing or you shouldn't be doing it. If it's your passion and it's something you want to follow, go for it, do it. There's no money in the world that's worth not following your passion and waking up at the end of the day and going, I should have done that. So this image, I've had a lot of debate over for the years, because I specifically cut his head off. And for me, it wasn't important that his head wasn't in the image, because he was never a part of the whole story. And it didn't really bother me, but I've had some people come back to me and say, yeah, well, you know, it's not a great image because, you know, you chopped his head off. But, you know, and yeah, that's just me. I like to look at things a little bit differently. So one of my favorite things to do is to shoot wide.
Yes.
I've always got a stupid wide lens in my bag, whether it's a 10 mil, a 12 mil, a 14 mil. I love wide. I love going in wide, and I love kind of distorting images. I mean, she is completely distorted, but I just love the feel of it. And once again, much like skateboarding, photography is 100% about rules. You need to learn basic rules, but then also just, you know, do you. As that saying goes, you do you, boo. If it works for you, that's all that matters. If it's the way you tell your story, it really doesn't matter what anyone else has to say about it. And I just love shooting wide.
I really enjoy the you know, that sort of perspective on a wider lens, where it makes you feel like you're part of the image. You know, a lot of times if you're shooting with 50 mil or something like that, you just slightly more removed than I would want to be in that sort of situation. So for me, I hear exactly what you're saying. It's you know, for me, it just makes it like you're part of the image and you're part of the action.
You know, I mean, I was fortunate enough to sit down with James Nachtwey for a little bit, just to have a little chat, and just talking about the lenses and why he uses primes. And, you know, Joao Silva's exactly the same, working on, you know, 35s and 50s. And it's because they want to connect with their subject. And that's why I've always liked kind of like, you know, wide lenses or shorter primes, because what happens is, you know, you can go into a situation, get a 70-200, stick it at 200, and you'll come out with a image. 100% you'll have an image, but would you come away with a story or an experience that goes along with it? And that for me is so important, is having those stories around images. And maybe, you know, Quinton and I were chatting earlier about maybe doing one of my Joburg series as a presentation as well, because the stories behind the images for me are always more important than the actual images themselves. So this is one of the images from one of the first days that I was there. And I mean, you can see on the girls, their stockings are torn. They just, none of the clothing fits properly. And this is what really attracted me to it, because there's just such beautiful textures in the black and whites. So these were all shot color originally and then converted to black and white, converted to black and white. But also these were edited back in 2005. So I've actually been kind of wondering if I should, you know, kind of sit with the raw images and start re-editing now with the software that we have available now. And then I kind of thought, no, I'm not going to do it. I'll just leave it the way it was. Because it's just, you know, if you kind of look, if you kind of start throwing some of this stuff at Snapseed and those kind of things, you're going to get really like grungy kind of textures, but yeah, I just think it would ruin it. So I'm going to leave it alone. So as I said a little bit earlier, the light that came in the afternoon in this place was just phenomenal, because you had this really high roof with these little slit windows around at the top. So around about 3:30, 4 o'clock every afternoon, the sun would just blast in through these, but would give you these streams of light where you could kind of just sit and wait for something to happen in those beautiful pieces of light. And that's the nice thing about working on a story like this, where it's kind of indoors and you've got time. You've got time to work on it. You've got time to say, that's a gorgeous piece of light. I'm going to wait for something to happen in it. And I'd literally sit there for an hour and wait for one of the girls or one of the dancers to be in that piece of light, and then make an image. And then I'd wait for another 20 minutes or half an hour. And I think it's an important lesson is patience in photography, where it's not instant gratification. That's something digital has brought with it, is this instant gratification. You can take your cell phone, you can go, bang, yeah, that's pretty cool. Snapseed it onto Instagram, right, next thing. Where if you're waiting for those decisive moments and you know what you want to produce ahead of time, you can really produce images that really are special. You can also, spend hours waiting and get nothing. So
yes,
it works
exactly. So it's quite interesting with a lot of the presentations that we've had. There's been threads that run throughout them, and they're all genre independent or dependent. Anyway, and one of the specifically this image reminds me of what Hillary was saying the other day with the equine photography. Inside the arena, there was an area of where the light came in. It was just the shaft, and she was waiting for the shot where the rider and the horse came into that shaft, and it's exactly the same thing. So for me, it's always interesting to see how the sort of overlap between genre is there. You still have the fundamentals of light and the fundamentals of a story. And it's just fantastic how they just go across all the genres. Everyone you speak to has got the same thing that they're after, but it's just a completely different context. It's really, really cool.
100%. I mean, and especially in street photography, a lot of my street stuff, I'll just drive around Joburg Central or wherever and just look for light. And I'll park my car and I'll get out my car and I will sit there for 2 hours if I have to, waiting for something, because I know that piece of light there. And I've actually got spots now where I know, in winter, the building, the sun's going to bounce off the diagonal street building and it lights up a certain area. So if I'm feeling that vibe at the moment, I'll go there at 2 p.m. and I know the light's going to be there. Yeah. And I can kind of sit and wait. And I've got like Excel spreadsheets of faces and light, because and photography is like that, because I don't feel like shooting tomorrow. And the day after that, you don't feel like shooting. And all of a sudden you like wake up and you're like, damn, I've got to shoot today. Mm. And as opposed to just driving around or trying to figure something out, I can kind of go, yeah, okay, I can go shoot this because it's winter, the light's going to be here. And I know I can go get something. And every time it's different.
So I think we need to develop an app. Okay. So the Joburg light, and it sends you a daily reminder of where the good light will be at what time.
I actually started working on a Google map, which was mapping light and locations, but then, yeah, life got busy. And,
exactly.
The biggest issue was I was doing it on my own. I was trying to get other photographers involved, but
yeah,
a lot of photographers are, kind of everything's close to the chest. They don't really want it there. So that kind of fell by the wayside for them. This is basically the same spotlight as in the previous image. I've just moved myself so that I can get a kind of rim light behind her and change my body positioning. This is probably one of my favorite of the images out of the whole series. I love this image.
That's very cool.
They only had one set of bars, and as you can see, I mean, they are completely and utterly worn out, which really just made for lovely texture in black and white. And I mean, you can see on her shoe there how trashed her shoes are. And this is the same girl from, if I can find it. Okay, so that's the same girl, same image as the previous one. And this is the one that won the World Press Award, was this image. And I think it was purely because of just the prettiness of the photo compared to the horribleness of the shoe.
Yeah.
And it just speaks volumes. Let's just pop back here again. Once again, wide lens, completely wide, except the only difference is compared to the previous images I've now kind of worked in with the light and the wide lens, and just changed angles as well. So, lying on the ground, and it's something I see a lot of young photographers or new photographers don't do, is looking at different angles. So I mean, if you look at the chairs in the background there, I've got images where I've climbed up on top of those chairs to shoot down into the light. I lay on the ground. My pants don't last me longer than 3 or 4 weeks, because I'm permanently lying on the ground or climbing up something, because I'm always looking for that different angle that is going to move the image apart. I say to a lot of people that when I do some classes and stuff, I say to guys, shoot the image you see, but then maybe spend 15 to 20 minutes working around that image. Stand up, lie down, climb on something, go behind something, frame it behind something. Look at different ways of telling the story, as opposed to just going, oh, that's a great image. And it might be a great image. It might be the image. But unless you try different things around that specific image, you'll never know if there was a better image for you to get.
Absolutely, and I mean that what you're saying now is exactly the case for that the shaft of light. You have the one from where the light's on the front of her, and then you have where the light's just basically being backlit, and that's just from nothing changed. It's just your position has changed, and it's one of the things that we have debates about every now and then regarding primes versus zooms. If you've got a zoom, you run the risk of getting lazy, because you just twist your wrist and you've got a different crop. But if you've got a prime, you have to move, and that movement moves the background as well. It changes the perspective, etc. And it's something that I'm considering moving across to, where I've just had zooms up until recently, and the fact that I have to work for angles has actually opened up more options than I had before, which is very interesting to me. So it really is just a case of get your banker, make sure you've got it, and then go crazy, see what's there. There may be something exceptionally fantastic, but the banker might be the one at the end of the day.
Yeah, as long as you get that one, you got it, it's done, and then you can start playing.
Yeah.
This is most probably my favorite of the images out of the Alex story. Was just, and this was actually a complete accident. I happened to be working on an image facing completely the other way, turned around, and the sun was just blasting through. So I have 2 frames of this.
Yeah.
Literally 2 frames. There's the one with her foot going down, which is the one just after this. And it was literally just a case, because I was working manual. I just shot the rim light image that you'd seen before, turned around, saw it, and literally, it's almost from the hip. It was like, and Nikon D, I think this was still the D100. So it's like, frame, then you go away for a cup of coffee, and then takes another frame. I think it was two and a half frames a second on that camera.
Yeah.
But still, what is actually quite amazing, though, is that if you consider this is out of a Nikon D100, how the quality holds up all these years later, compared to my 5D Mark IV, my EOS R. It's still there. Yeah, obviously, if you're going to pixel peep, it's not going to be the same. But looking at as we're looking at it now, it still holds up.
Absolutely.
And then, this was just one of the little girls. So I started working on going around to all the kids' houses to kind of do stuff. But then what happens in this journey of passion is you lose it. And I'd spent probably about 18 months working on the story by this point. And I'd loved it. I'd shot it, but everything was kind of becoming the same. The images, I was going back, and I was struggling for new images. And it just got to the stage where I thought, okay, cool, story's done. And as far as I was concerned, that was the end of Ballet for me. It was never I'm going to come back to this. It was like, I'm done with the story now. It's been 18 months. I've got, I think, 8,500 images, which I still haven't edited yet.
Yeah.
And I kind of just walked away from it. The home story just didn't work for me in conjunction with the images I've been getting of them actually dancing. It just didn't gel. You weren't getting the same light. It just didn't work for me. So I came back to the school, said goodbye to the kids, shot one last image of Penny, and I was done. That was 18 months, done, finished. And I carried on with my press career, doing everything else. And then what happened is, 2005. So this is a good 9 years, 8 years later. The bug bit me again. I don't know what happened. I have a sneaking suspicion it was, I saw, there's, I can't remember the name of the guys now, but there's a dance guy on Instagram. Instagram was out and they were sharing these images of ballet dancers in the streets. And I was like, whoa, that is cool. But then I didn't know any dancers anymore. And I spent probably about a year looking until I met Michelle. Now, you'll see these images are a lot smaller. Unfortunately, this whole series of images is gone. So it's about 6 shoots. I was in the process of moving from hard drives to the cloud, and I lost 2 years worth of work because the drive literally packed up as I was moving it over.
Wow.
So 2017 and 2018 don't exist anymore. It was all gone. And that's where these images were stored. So fortunately, they were on Facebook, so they're a little bit smaller and quality is not as great. But I then went across to Rog at Canon and I said, Roger, do me a favor. Got this crazy idea. I want to shoot this. Could you loan me some gear? And Rog loaned me a 5D Mark IV and 85 1.2 and a couple of other lenses. And I went out and started working on this series. And it was very different. It was very, very different. And I found my mindset was completely different to where I'd been all those years ago with the Alex Ballet School. I mean, I'd shot some dance in between, but nothing ever serious. Nothing I was going like, yeah, cool, I'm back into this. I need to shoot ballet again. It was like, just shoot it. And then I started working with Michelle and we spent, it was probably a month or two working on this set of images, just in and around Joburg. And I was looking for something different again, still using the basic principles that I was talking about earlier. So looking for little pieces of light, but also just trying out a different editing style along with it as well. And literally what happened is it just reignited that passion around ballet again, where I was like, actually, you can't shoot a bad image. If you get a dancer that knows what she's doing and you stick her into kind of the environment that you want, you're going to get a good image. So it became hard actually because I didn't want good images. I wanted great images. And it kind of, it just inspired my whole sort of thought around what I wanted to produce again. So it was a lot of time spent kind of scouting locations, say, okay, great, I'm going to take Michelle here next or there next. And then we'd spend some time working on it, working on what clothes she was going to wear. So these shoots were a lot more styled than just doing a documentary story where I basically just went and got. And there was a whole set of new challenges because South Africa was also a very different country.
Yeah.
So to now take a dancer like Michelle and myself into Joburg Central, when the light is good, which is normally 5:30-ish to 7:38-ish or late afternoon, to work on the streets became an issue, which means we didn't do it during the week, which means we only worked kind of Sundays because everyone in Joburg parties on Saturday night. So if you get into Joburg Central early on a Sunday, you're cool because everyone's kind of exactly. Over.
Yeah.
So it's little things you learn along the way.
Yeah, hint number 3. Sunday morning.
Yeah. And then so I started working with Michelle and just looking for different images. Now, this was probably my favorite out of this series. And I just love the symmetry of it. I've never been a symmetry kind of person. I've never been a frame in the middle kind of person. And this one just worked for me. I loved everything about it. This is just opposite Diagonal Street, opposite the big glass building there. And this is also maybe 2 or 3 frames we got there before we started attracting attention from some locals who wanted to come and talk to us. So we grabbed a couple of frames, and a lot of this Joburg stuff was literally driving around going, okay, cool, that's a nice spot, right? She gets changed in the back of my car. We get her ready. We park the car. We stop. We jump out. She knows what pose I want. It's bang up against the wall. Frame, 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 frame. Yeah, cool. Back in the car and gone. So it's a lot of this was kind of smash and grabby kind of let's just grab the image quickly and get going.
Absolutely. Because it's amazing how the streets in Joburg have got a completely different vibe to them. You know, people will just come up and talk to you about stuff. I remember shooting the couple shoot of a wedding there, and eventually I just had to give in because these two little girls just did not want to leave the frame. So I posed the couple how I wanted them, got my assistant to move the light to where I wanted it. And then I just shot it with the two little girls in there, one with a skateboard and the other with one of those little push bike things. And, you know, you just got to do it. But if you don't want them there, you've got to be in and out quite quickly. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I've actually got a frame exactly like what you're talking about there in about 2 frames time. So this was very kind of set up, and I just wanted to kind of combine both of my passions, which is skateboarding and ballet, and obviously photography and light. And yeah, the image has been done before. I've seen similar images, but then most of these images have been done before. So this is pretty much what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I was trying to get this image and I wanted it clean, and it just wasn't happening. The more I kind of, you know, got them off to the side, it started with one kid, and then his mate saw him, then it was 2, then it was 3, and I was like, okay, done. Okay, cool. Let's just let Michelle do her thing. And she was just so great with the kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually the image. And it's weird how sometimes it's not the image you want that is the image that you want.
Exactly.
Okay, so then we skip forward. It was really about another 3 years. So I shot with Michelle for a while, and then she was still studying at the time, and then she went into a full-time career. So it became hard again. Now, one of the biggest issues I've had with this story over all these years is trying to find dancers. So unfortunately, I can't work with Joburg Ballet Company or any of those kind of theaters because they want final say on the images I'm allowed to put out. Because, and I mean, I understand it 100%, because, you know, a foot in this position as opposed to this position is not a lot to me. I might like the aesthetics of the image where I like it, but the pose is wrong. It's wrong. And they don't want to portray their dancers in poses that aren't 100% right. And I want 100%, you know, being a creative, I want 100% control over which images I choose.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to meet Sam, and Sam had just finished at SABT, and I bumped into her. We had a cup of coffee, we got chatting, and next thing I found out she was a ballet dancer, and I was like, let's make some pretty. And she had a really good friend, so she put me in touch with a couple of her friends as well, and we just started shooting. Now, this type of street stuff is what I've always wanted to kind of shoot, was just to get that beautiful South African light, Joburg morning traffic, everything that you can kind of just dig out of Joburg at that time of the morning. And we spent a couple of days working the intersection there at Rosebank by the McDonald's, and yeah, getting the strangest of looks, but it was just so worthwhile. And I think out of all the dancers I've worked with, Sam was just such a pleasure to work with, because she just did it again and again and again and again, until I had what I wanted. But also very interactive, where I'd show the image and say, no, what about if we do this? And having a partner in crime who may not be a photographer, but knows their craft so well that they can kind of guide you along where you should go. So a lot of these photographs are her idea or her input that has made the images. And that was really, really cool. I learned a hell of a lot more about ballet on the project this time. Yeah. Another thing I've played with on this project as well is, I think, unfortunately, having come from a press background, I've never really diddled my images. I've never kind of said, well, that's not how it was. That light was a lot colder, but I kind of just played around, and I started playing around with dropping movie LUTs onto photos in Photoshop, and then playing with the opacity. And it's the coolest thing, because you can take these really awesome movie LUTs and drop them on and start doing grades. And I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. And because it's not press photography, because it's mine, I can actually do whatever I want to. If I want to make it pink and purple, I can make it pink and purple, because it's now art. It's not going into a newspaper. I'm not lying. I'm telling the story the way I want to tell the story. And that was a big move forward for me in the whole project this time.
No, absolutely. And I think that's, is part of that whole creative process. Some people don't want to have the sort of grading to it. They want to keep it quite natural, and others want to just push and play with that for a bit. And I think that when it comes to a long-term project, it's quite nice to have those nuances within that. You'll probably still keep the thread that runs throughout them. But it's part of exploring how far you want to push the project, and if it, you work out whether it is where you want to go or not. But you need to go through that process.
100%. And I actually really enjoyed playing with different kind of filters and colorings. And it's amazing how it changes your image so much. I mean, so this image on the left-hand side was actually quite warm previously, and I dropped like a kind of teal filter onto it to make it a little bit colder just because of her body position. And I kind of thought, well, it looks like she kind of, should be cold, not warm. And yeah. This I love. I love the guy on the right hand side busy eyeing her out, and the only thing for me that I really don't like is just that pink van on the back right hand side. Thank you, Vuma, for killing my photo. But yeah, once again, it was just lovely to get the interactions from people while we were working on these images, and to kind of see the looks on their faces with this gorgeous dancer, like kind of bouncing around up and down the streets. It's something that you expect overseas, because, you go to New York and there's thousands of people doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
It's not something you kind of expect in Joburg. So then we moved on from there. This whole series was basically me going, where could we shoot that would be weird? Where wouldn't you expect to find a ballet dancer? And where would we have props that we could use? So this is the Westcliff stairs. You've got a jogger disappearing off in the background there. And it was like, okay, cool. We've got a rail there. We can work with the rail and just really play with kind of what would be a studio style ballet shoot, but outdoors.
Yeah.
This one I've kind of played with a hell of a lot. This one was probably about 4 different filters on top of each other. But just to try to push things to evolve, to kind of see where I can go with the images. And I like it. I like the way the image turned out in the end. Others may not. I really like it.
I think it's quite interesting, the thought of, whether you like it, whether the audience likes it, whether the public in general like it. I think there's quite an interesting sort of discussion that can be had around that. Because at the end of the day, as an artist, and I mean, I struggle hugely with calling myself an artist. I'm not an artist. But if you're not happy with it, well, no one's going to be happy with it. You know what I mean? Because you can't control what other people feel. So at the end of the day, you really just got to work with what you want to get out of it and be happy with it. And it's quite interesting how many years ago, a wedding photographer that I chatted to quite often said that, what he does for when he shoots weddings, he doesn't shoot for the clients, he shoots for himself. So you follow what it is that you want, and the passion and the love that you put into it is then picked up by the clients who love what you shoot. So even though they're the clients and they're paying, he's not shooting for them, he's shooting for himself. And I really appreciate that. I think it's quite an interesting part of my journey of just going, well, there is another option here. So, whether it's got filters or not filters, or this angle or this lens, or the background is soft and smushy, at the end of the day, if you love it, fantastic. If no one else loves it, it's really neither here nor there, but that's how it should be.
100%. I mean, along those lines, I mean, you look at someone like Tim Mulman, who started off his whole thing just because that's what he believed and that's the way he wanted to shoot. And what he's done is created this industry around the way he shoots, and he's convinced people that this is the way he shoots. And, if you like it, awesome, come book him. Yeah. And he does he's probably one of the most underrated wedding photographers I've ever seen. Besides the fact that he's just such a nice guy. Yeah. But I just love his work. Maybe because it's the photojournalist in me that kind of reaches out and feels it. But I mean, I've done 1 or 2 weddings with Tim. We've worked together, and he's just phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, the chat that I had with him when he was doing his presentation, that certainly opened a lot of ideas in my mind, and gave me opportunities or solutions to the way that I was thinking. So also a great guy to chat to.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, this is what I did with each of these sets of images is kind of like, so if you look at the colorings on the whole Westcliff series, I've kept the same sort of colorings and filters for each of the locations. So I've kind of gone, okay, cool, well, I'm going to go with these sets of filters with this set of color and work it along with each of the different locations. And I think it has worked out for me. Yeah. So then we moved on to Mabaneng, of course, because
I love this shot.
You have to go and shoot in Mabaneng.
Yeah.
So Sam brought Kiki along, and Kiki decided, she loved this idea, and we spent a couple of hours there. Actually, more than a couple of hours, mostly a day or 2 there, but just working on Sundays in Mabaneng, that same sort of thing. This is probably, I think, 5:36 in the morning. Just waiting for that light, because that light streams down that street at like 6-ish in the morning. It just blasts down the street and then starts bouncing off the different windows. And I love this image. Now this is a 5D Mark IV, and I think a 70-200 2.8 Mark III.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can just see the hairs on her legs standing up, it's like, I mean, Canon have gone to the ends of the earth for me on this project. Every time I revive it, Roger gets a call and it's like, Rog, help, I need a... And, that was probably why also just, if you look behind me, that is just, it's Canon. It's because I've always been able to reach out and go, I need help. And for me, that is something that's really important. We're not here to talk cameras, sorry.
But I think it's a good thing to note, and again, whether this gets me into trouble again, still whatever, throughout the process of the Hunters of Light, it has been a case of we're just trying to make everyone inspired and motivated and have a better time of it, and Canon has continued to support the process. I mean, look at the giveaway this week, etc. I think it's very telling how where the other manufacturers are or aren't. But yeah, we're not here to talk about cameras. Over to you again.
The whole series, if anyone wants to know, the Alex stuff was all shot on Nikon, because that's what I had at the time, and then everything else is Canon based. Moving from, I think, I can't even remember what the other stuff was shot with, but yeah, it was all mostly 5D Mark IV, then into the EOS Rs, and on. So this image I've taken a bit of flack over. It's culturally inappropriate somehow. And yeah, I like it. That's all I'm going to say. Once again, working with 2 dancers is a lot harder than working with 1 dancer. Just trying to work with the 2 of them in images, because you've just got different styles, you've got different heights. Now with ballet, that's a big thing, is working with dancers at different heights. So Kiki is about a whole 3 foot tall. She's tiny. I mean, we actually, she got changed in the boot of my car at one of the shoots because she was that small. And Sam is quite a tall girl. So using depths to kind of get them the same height in images or moving them around. You got to play with the different images. This, once again, was Sam's idea when she kind of said, well, do you want me to do a split over 2 tables? I was like, yeah, all right, Sam. And next thing I know, she's over 2 tables doing the splits. So I didn't know bodies could do most of the things that these girls could do. Mabaneng is just, it's a gorgeous place to work. I tend to not work too much with writing. I don't like making my images too simple to kind of read and see.
Yeah.
I like to kind of push you a little bit to say, well, think about it. I'm not giving it to you on a plate. This is a little bit on a plate, but I just like the image.
I think it's the nice thing about Maboneng is that there's a lot of visual texture in that first image where the pavement was in that grid. That obviously adds to it, but there's also like the graffiti and the way that cement, paint peeling, etc. I've always enjoyed it as a place to shoot. I love it.
I think my favorite thing around Maboneng is actually the leading lines. There's just lines everywhere.
Yeah.
And when you've got the sun at the right place, there's just everything you want. The lines just going exactly where you want them. Yeah. Once again, I just love this image. I love the shadows. I love the color, the vibrancy, lines, everything. It's out of the whole shoot. This is probably my favorite of the Maboneng series, mainly because it speaks to the photojournalist in me with the lady in the background pushing her trolley in, and it just tells a story more than, I mean, just the other images might be pretty, but as a photojourn, this image talks to me a lot more than the rest of the images. It's not as pretty, it's not as dynamic, it's a little bit flat, but yeah, I like it. Yeah, typical Joburg image. I mean, you had to get something with a taxi. I had some really stunning ones with Michelle from the previous shoot, where she was kind of in a pose, and I had a taxi driver leaning over his passenger, giving her a fist bump out the window, which was just great image. But unfortunately, it's one of the images that disappeared. So I like it. It's, once again, there's some of these images that will appeal to people. There's some that won't, and there's some that people go, well, why the hell did you shoot that? But once again, like we were saying earlier, it's about what I want. So
exactly.
I love this image. Really, I like this image. I like just the distractedness of everything else that's happening around it. And then just when your eye finds her, it's like, okay, I got it. Because there's a hell of a lot happening in the image. Yeah. Same thing, just Kiki in the image. This was a great door to work in. And I mean, I've seen thousands of images, whether it's wedding stuff or there's so much that's happened in this. This must be one of the most photographed doors in Joburg. Yeah. Also, very keen on this image. Just the security guard, the smile on his face, his cricket bat. He literally just moved those guys off in the background. He chased them off because they were, giving us a bit of grief. And yeah, just nice, simple, plain image. This was specifically shot for the girls. They wanted the Maboneng sign and a starburst, and yeah. I suppose when you're in Maboneng, you have to do an image that has.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a question for regarding equipment and that sort of thing, with these, are there favorite lenses or favorite focal lengths that you prefer to use, or because I mean you mentioned earlier the 70 to 200 etc. But there seem to be like a range of lenses. Is there a specific route that you've gone down, or is it just a mix?
It's a mix of images. So I'd normally go out equipped with probably a 24mm, a 35mm, a 50, an 85, and then, strange enough, my trusty old, I don't even know, it's a 12 to 24 Sigma.
Okay.
This little spherical, I think this thing cost me like $800.
Yeah.
The freaking wide images that come out of this, I love it. I love it because you get that vignette on the sides, and it's a little bit soft on the sides. And if you just get it right slightly, there's flair, and I love it. I love, if I sell all my lenses, that lens I will keep. And the nice thing is the versatility of it, because you can kind of mount it on EF, on crop sensor cameras or on normal cameras, and then you're getting that little bit more. And I love playing with that lens. But yeah, everything else is kind of top end. It's 85 1.2s, 50 1.2, 35 1.8, 24 1.4, I think, and 70 to 200 2.8.
Okay.
But mostly it would be primes. I like the ability to kind of walk around with a small form factor in the camera. I think I've got a 24 2.8, which is probably my favorite lens. Okay. Next, the 40mm f 40mm f 2.8 or f2. the little pancake cannon lens.
Yes, yes.
Love that lens because you can kind of stick that in the EOS R on the RP and you've got this tiny little body. And
Exactly.
it's great for street photography.
Yeah.
You can kind of just run around and blat. Okay, so from Mabaneng, we woke up. I had this idea to kind of shoot with hot air balloons. And because I kind of spent a lot of time on the internet kind of going, searching and looking at ballet stuff and stuff that had been shot. And one thing I couldn't find was ballet dancers and hot air balloons. So I jumped onto a couple of hot air balloon companies and said to them, right, this is what I wanted to do. 90% of them laughed at me. And then Air to Africa basically said, cool, come on down. So we were there. I mean, those launches, it's middle of winter and it is 5:30 in the morning. It is freezing. I mean, on the bottom of the image there, that is frost.
Yeah.
And poor Kiki literally almost died. She was so cold that she was standing while they were setting up the balloons. She was standing there next to the burner.
Yeah, trying to keep warm.
So she had a huge jacket on. We cover up like this until I kind of got, okay, cool, that's the image I want. And she'd rip that off and then run and pose and then back into the jacket again. But the images leading up to the three or four frames that I used weren't great. It was like light wasn't right. Yeah. It was too early. The problem with the hot air balloon launches is they are so early that I couldn't get a balance between what was happening in the background and her. So we managed to get this image, and then one more, and that was it. That was it out of the whole shoot. At this stage, I thought it was those two images and kind of got this one. We kind of started chasing down through the field.
Yeah.
Now, the field that they launched in this morning, the grass is about 4.5 foot high. And it wasn't their usual launch spot, but they couldn't launch because of wind from the usual spot. So they just found this field offloaded and started launching there. And poor Kiki had to run. So we like the balloon would float, and I'm like, it's not in the right place anymore. And we go sprint. Now she's in ballet shoes and tripping over huge rocks and blackjacks and the chaos that we went through just to get like 4 images before the balloon got out.
Yeah.
And we looked at the couple of images we got, and I said, okay, cool, we got 2. I'm happy with it. Let's get you back in the car. We're done. Let's get back to civilization. Let's get coffee in you, and we're done for the day. And we jump in the car, we pack up, and we get her out of her tutu, and she's in her big jacket, and we drive down the road, and I just see the sun pouring down this road, and I see the balloon coming from the left to the right. And I'm like, holy shit. Kiki, get out there now. And she's out the car, and her mom's trying to strap the tutu onto her, and we're getting her shoes back on, and it was literally, I think it was 2 frames that we managed to get here as well. It was literally, we had the balloon on the far left-hand side of her, and then one on the far right-hand side of her. And I can quite honestly say, out of all the ballet images I've ever shot, this is just my favorite. It's my favorite because it's not something you expect to see, is just this beautiful light, a hot air balloon, and a ballet dancer.
Exactly.
It does everything for me.
Very cool.
So then, we kind of just followed the balloon around for a bit, and just, we got that one. So it was like, oh, maybe we can get some more. And I'm okay with this one. I wouldn't say I love it. Ooh, I must have it, but I'm okay with it. I don't dislike it. So then I moved on with Sam, and about 3 years ago, I did a story about the Alhambra Theatre reopening, and they were going to open it as an art theatre for the children of the area. So I did a story for one of the newspapers on it, and then kind of forgot about it. And then I kind of thought to myself, shit, how nice would it be to take Sam into this abandoned theatre and shoot her in there? So the idea was to shoot something different once again, very grungy. The whole idea is we were going to throw lots of filters at this and just go completely arty, because it's ballet in a theater and we wanted something completely different. So this is a multiple exposure of 5, 6 images, I think a clean plate, and then 5 images on top of it. And then camera just in one position, just shooting single images and then stacked on top of each other. Awesome, love it.
Yeah, this is also one of my favorites.
Yeah, it just, I think, tells this ghostly story about this abandoned theater with this dancer who's kind of ghostly. we did try do one where I was trying to work with really slow shutter speeds, but I couldn't get it sharp enough to work. Theatre from the front side, dancer. It sort of works for me. I'm not a huge fan, but it kind of works for me. I think maybe I may go back to this one and look at a completely different edit. There's something about it that I don't like. So this was in the smaller upstairs theatre, and I basically just told Sam to go nuts. Give me weird body positions, and we were really pushing for that kind of more ghostly kind of theme of trying to tell the story of this dancer who'd been kind of left behind with the theatre years ago. Something along those lines. More kind of arty. Also, not sure. I think incorrect lens. I should have gone 70-200 with this and pushed out a lot more to kind of just compress everything a lot more. It's okay. This one I like. I really like the image. I like the treatment that I've given it. Love it. Once again, very much around more the treatment. I love working with mirrors. So in a lot of the kind of portrait stuff that I do, when I do stuff at clients' houses and stuff, I love mirrors. I love mirrors. I love telling stories using mirrors. And it's been a theme in mirrors, and reflections are two of my favorite things. If we ever do my Joburg series, you'll see that a lot of stuff is kind of reflections or mirrors of cars. Or I've got a series that I started working on just called Reflections of Joburg, which is literally just Joburg daily life shot in reflections.
Yeah.
I think most probably my favorite of the images out of this series, just because it's what I was going for here was kind of very much an oil painting kind of vibe. I wanted something that you'd look at and go, well, is that a photo or is it a painting? And I think I achieved where I wanted to go with this one.
Yeah, it's got quite a nice sort of painterly feel.
Yeah, it's kind of, more Renaissance-y. That's kind of the vibe I was kind of going for, was along those lines. And then, of course, we had to do the car train. So Kiki and I spent it seems every time Kiki and I work together, it is freezing cold. And this day was just one of the coldest days we had in the year. I arrived there. Once again, she was bundled up in coats and stuff, and her mom walking around carrying all the stuff for us. And it was freezing. It was horribly freezing. I didn't have permission to shoot at the car train. We were like, we're going to do this. Because I'd actually approached car train like 3 years before to do a series like this, and they'd shut me down. So we were like, yeah, cool. We're going to pay for our tickets. I'm going to take one body, one lens, and we're just going to kind of blat away and see what we get.
Yeah.
And yeah, out of this series, I love this. I just love the look on the guy's face, everything about it, color, everything. And it's literally just, I let her play. So most of these images are no direction from me whatsoever. I said to Kiki, you just go, and I'm going to treat this as if it's a street photography session. You go, you pose, I'm going to shoot it. Because my kind of camera was under my jacket. I think this was all 24-8. I may have had a 40 f2 as well, but yeah. So it was camera under the jacket, she'd pose, I'd bang, camera back under the jacket, and we'd move on. This one, I kind of had the idea of what I wanted, but it kind of works for me, but didn't really work for me the way I wanted it to kind of work. I've kept it in just because of the lines. I like all the convergence of the lines, the people on the right there, but ideally I think what we needed was someone on the right-hand esculator, and maybe what we should have done is hung about a little bit more to get that kind of eye contact between the person on the right-hand escalator and her. That would have made the image work.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that I'm kind of re-looking at them, I'm like always in two minds. And it's weird how something that you'll kind of go, yeah, I love that. And it gets in the edit, and you look at it back again and go, I'm not so sure. Yeah, I'm not so sure. Maybe. They can't all be winners.
Yeah.
I like this one. I really like this one. It just blows my mind what Kiki can do with her body and the small spaces she can get herself into. I like the reflections once again. Is just, you know, the BMW on the right hand side reflected in the window. So there's more than one kind of thing happening. Yeah.
It's multi-layered.
Yeah. Kiki once again, and guess what? It was freezing. And we can thank Roger for this one. So Canon organized a photo walk, a huge photo walk at the SA Airways Museum out in Germiston. So I used it as an excuse to get my ballet dancer onto a plane.
Lovely.
But also, it was one of those mornings that was just shit cold. Kiki froze to death again. It's literally, yeah, every shoot, Kiki gets cold. What I kind of went for with this is because this is one of those older style planes, I was trying to go for that 60s, late 60s kind of flying vibe where flying was luxury, and that you know, that type of feel in the edit to kind of get very tealy, light browny kind of vibe, so it looks a little bit vintage. Yeah, maybe. See, I liked this an hour ago before when I started. We'll have to hear people's comments when this eventually goes up, and they can tell me if they like it. But
absolutely,
it works for me because the continuation of the line through her body up to. So technically, I think it works. I just don't know if I love it anymore. Same with this. It works. It does the job that it needed to do. But you know, that's the image for me. That's the one out of the series that works. This is not bad, but it's a bit empty. I think maybe if she was, you know, had a tray and she was serving coffee to someone sitting there, if we'd had more time to kind of set up, I think I'd love to go back with this with a stylist.
Yeah.
And get a couple of people involved and reshoot this styled. I think we could do something really, really cool.
Absolutely. I think the tray with the drinks is a good idea.
Yeah. You know, and maybe it needs to be another ballerina sitting in the chair in a pose as well, accepting the drinks. But yeah, you know, that's why you get stylists, because they know these things. Yeah, I love this one. I really do. I adore this image. It just does everything for me. And then to finish off, we're into the last two images. I just kind of threw these two in to finish off with, because they were probably two of my images that I've shot over the years that I really, really liked. I just can't remember her name now. I've gone blank. Give me a second, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. That's why I've gone blank. So this is Angela Malone. This was her, basically when she was leaving the South African Ballet Theatre. She'd been prima ballerina there for years and years and years. And this was her warming up for her last performance as the Swan. So I just went outside, and if anyone hasn't shot her, shooting into the SABT studios is phenomenal, because you've just got these reflections that bounce out. This is a 70-200, most probably from half a block away. I think with a 1.4 extender on it as well. And then her final performance as she went on for the final time onto stage was just this one, which is most probably my favorite of all my ballet images ever.
Yeah, I love this one. I think it's very cool.
Everything about it is, you know, just her entering for the last time, the space on the left-hand side that's empty. Yeah, for me, just tells the story of someone's last dance.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, and I suppose it's difficult to try and unhear what you said, but for me, her body language is also, it feels a little emotional or negative, possibly. You know, angle of the head, etc. So you know, it's once you hear the context, then you know all of those sort of things start falling into place for me. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
One of the coolest things about shooting ballet live is how they get into character about 8 steps back from that curtain. So, you know, you're 8 steps back, you're having a chat with her, and all of a sudden it's like she switches into character, and the dance actually starts 2 meters back from the curtain, not as she gets into where people can see her. And that was just lovely to see, was to kind of, it's just an insight that you would never ever get kind of watching ballet from the audience. And watching it from backstage was just phenomenal. And yep, that is it. That's all of the images. We can kill the screen sharing. Stop share. You can't share my images.
No, that was very cool. Thank you so much. You know, I think it's really important for all photographers to have a personal project or something that, whether it's a long-term or short-term, but to work on personal projects, because that's where, you know, you push yourself. It's not a client saying that they want this in that position, and, you know, there you go. You know, you have to go and you have to sit there, think about it, look at it. Are you happy with it? You know, 5 years down the line, look at it again. You were happy with that at the time, and then you're not so sure now. Because I think that really does help to develop you as a photographer. So it was really cool to see such a long-term project, you know, where it literally started many years ago, to see where you've managed to take it. So I appreciate you, you know, giving us the time to see all of the images and see where you've gone with it.
And it's not done yet, you know. It's because it's a long term and it's a lifetime project. I'm already starting to work on what's next. I'm not quite sure what that is yet. But the nice thing is I have a pool of dancers now that are keen to work with me, and so like I said, I don't know where we're going to take it next or how or what. I was going to do something now during Corona, you know, to get some dancers with masks, but I felt it was too on the nose. So we'll see where it goes next.
Well, there you go. So if anyone's watching that's a dancer and wants to be part of a cool project, you know where to go.
100%.
Shayne, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and being with us today. It's gone a little bit over, but I'm sure that no one's going to complain. So yeah, thanks very much, and keep shooting and have a good weekend.
Awesome stuff. You keep doing what you're doing, dude. And yeah, hopefully we all, you know, find some work sometime in the near future, so, you know, we can actually make a living.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Thanks, Shayne. Appreciate your time.
Cool, dude. Cheers.
Okay.